right at 6:30, so I will call tonight's Truth and Taxation hearing meeting to order. And Jolene, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Erickson.
Here.
Councilmember Husnick.
Here.
Councilmember Valento.
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
Mayor Bain.
Here. We don't have this on the agenda this evening, but we would be remiss if we didn't start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to invite you all to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody that is here tonight for our Truth and Taxation hearing. We are going to, many times when we take public comment at the very beginning of our meeting. We are going to turn this agenda on its head just a little bit tonight. We're going to start first with a presentation from Kevin to walk through what is proposed for the 2025 budget, and then we will open up to public comment, open up for a public hearing. If you are signed in, we will go in the order of your sign-in sheet. If you have not yet signed in, or if you realize during the course of public comment that you would like to still make comment, that is fine. I will open it up once everybody that has signed up to speak has had an opportunity to do so. After we've closed public comment, we'll bring conversation back to council for consideration, perhaps some additional questions, and then ultimately, if should council choose, a vote on this evening's budget and also our 10-year capital plan. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to walk us through tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have a presentation to go over the highlights of the 2025 budget and tax levy. So with that, we'll just get started. So here tonight, we're doing our Truth and Taxation meeting. So really what the meeting requirements are. We're going to provide a summary of where the 2025 budget is being proposed to be approved at. Also, what the 2025 tax levy be set at. And then, as Mayor Bain said, give the public opportunity for input after this presentation. So this was the budget calendar, what that was presented to City Council all the way back in April. So as you can see, the city's been working on this 2025 budget going as far back as April. So this is just, it's a year-long process. The City Council's put in a lot of work to get to where we are at this point. We've had a lot of budget discussions, a lot of budget workshops to get to where we are at tonight in regards to the 2025 budget and the 2025 tax levy. This slide is just a summary of all the budgets that the city adopts for all of its funds. The main one just to point out is that top line, the general fund. This is the main operating fund for the city. As in years past, you can see that the revenue and expenditures equal the same amount, therefore having a zero impact on changes in fund balance. The other highlights would be the capital funds, would be the park dedication fund, capital improvement fund, capital equipment fund. There are some increases and decreases you see there, but that's where we incorporate the 10-year capital plan and 10-year financial management plan, as well as our plan either increases or decreases as the city plans for the future. This slide just gives a visual of where the city receives most of its revenue from for all budgets, excluding our TIF funds and our enterprise funds. You can see from the pie chart that a big chunk of the revenue does come from the general property tax levy across all funds. A big portion of the pie of about 20% is bond proceeds that are being proposed to be issued next year for the North Shore Trail Improvement Project. This slide just shows where the majority of the expenditures are. As consistent with our years, most of those are in the general fund, as they are is the chief operating fund for the city. That's what most of the wages fall into, this to keep the city operations going at the level of service that the city wants. This breaks down the expenditures by category across all funds. A big category is, as consistent with prior years, is the police department. This with the amount of staff that's in there and the wages that are mostly tied to that, therefore make up the largest piece of the pie on this graph. Otherwise, the other percentages and along with the police are consistent with where we have seen them in previous years. So with that, looking at the tax levy for what's being proposed in 2025. If we go right to the bottom, the total levy is being proposed at just over 16.4 million, which is an increase of about 9.87% from the 2024 tax levy. You can see the summary of changes. The majority of it is within the Parks and Trails Fund. The EDA fund has a new position in there that's being funded, and then the general fund, which is the operational fund, has seen an increase of about 8%. We're getting into some more details as we go along here. So where do we start and where are we at tonight? So back in August, the levy amount was proposed at just under 17 million. And that was 13.54% increase back then. So between August and all the way up till December 5th, last week, city staff and city council have worked on the budget and has made some adjustments to get to where we are at today at this meeting. So we made an adjustment to the Parks and Rec position where originally it was in the budget at a higher grade. We readjusted the plan for that position and had some wage savings there. And then at the September 23rd meeting, there was a reduction of $250,000 in the Park Dedication Fund levy. This was made before the required preliminary levy submission that was due to the county on September 30th. So between September and December 5th up to last week, the city council and staff, we held a budget open house. We had an online budget survey. They asked for public input. We held a budget workshop again on November 18th, and then most recently as December 5th, where city council gave direction to staff, where we reduced the general fund levy by $150,000 as looking at 2024 projections. We're able to reduce that contingency fund balance line item to meet our fund balance policy. And then we also were given direction to reduce the capital equipment levy by $100,000 and use some public safety aid dollars that the city received at the end of 23 to help supplement some of those capital equipment purchases as it relates to public safety. So with that all said, as the previous slide showed, it was just over 16.4 million, where we are at a 9.87% increase as being proposed tonight. So why the tax levy increase? We need the increase to maintain the level of service that the city has. From plowing city streets to parks and maintaining parks, public safety, fire, police, we need to maintain that level of service that the residents want and the city council has given us direction on as well. There are also new positions in this budget that are being funded through a tax levy. One is a planning and EDA supervisor, and there's also 2 part-time community service officers in this budget as well. There is a amount for a class and compensation study. This has not been done in the city in quite a few years, and the purpose of that is to retain and attract talent in the city. There's also an increase in the building maintenance fund tax levy, as even though most of for example, this building is relatively new, we do have some maintenance items coming up that need to be planned for in the future. We also have $145,000 levy in this 2025 budget for downtown median and landscaping beautification, and as well as increases to capital park improvement and for maintenance related to our park infrastructure. So there's also some inflationary increases that the city cannot control. Some of those are just wages and benefits tied to our union approved contracts. When looking at the increase from the 2024 budget to 2025 with just the current positions, not any of the new positions that I mentioned, it's just at about 5% increase with the wages and benefits. And then we also see increases, along with what many other residents see, increases in insurance, electric utilities, our computer support, information technology, fuel. We can't necessarily control these costs, and that's accounting for about a 2.87% increase from 2024. So what's the impact on homeowners? So the average home value in Forest Lake in 2025 is at top row of $388,600. So going across the top, you can see the increase is $134,081 for the city portion of the taxes. This equates to about $11 per month to the average homeowner in the city of Forest Lake. So where does the tax levy go? Majority goes to the general fund to operate the city. All the remaining ones there are for capital equipment, capital improvements such as streets and infrastructure, park improvements and maintenance that goes along with our park infrastructure, as well as our debt service requirements for debt that the city has issued to help fund streets and whatnot. So this graph just shows where the percent increases have been for the city over the past 10 years. You can see that last year we had the 13.91% increase, with this year showing, as proposed tonight, the 9.87% increase. This is just a history of where the tax rate has been for the city. As you can see, the city has hovered right around 40% for the past few years. There was a decrease back in 2023 as we did see the market valuations have a significant trend upwards, which caused our tax rate to go down. But historically, when you look at the city, our tax rate has been hovering right around that 40% mark, give or take. So with that, that's my presentation. If there's any questions the council has for me right now before we open the public hearing, otherwise we can go from there.
Council, any questions of Kevin before we open public comment? No? Okay. Thank you, Kevin. All right, so let's open up the public comment portion of our meeting. We'll start with those who have signed in. We also have an opportunity for anybody who might be online that wishes to speak. If you are online and wish to speak, when we get to that portion, please raise your hand online and Jolene can let you into the virtual meeting here.
Mayor, there's no one signed up on the Truth and Taxation sign-in. There is a gentleman, Mike. Were you going to speak at this one or the regular?
Okay.
Okay.
I got all my questions answered.
All right, let's open it up. Anybody who would wish to speak in the Truth and Taxation hearing this evening? Not seeing anybody come forward in the room. Jolene, is there anybody online? And I know you have also maybe an email that needs to be read into the record.
Correct. We don't have any attendees online this evening, Mayor, but I do have the one email from a resident, so I can go forward with
Perfect,
that.
let's
if you're
start
ready.
there.
Okay. This was received by Mr. Chris Voxlin, Forest Lake resident at 4851 217th Street North. Mr. Voxlin stated, Forest Lake City Council members, Mayor Bain, and Mayor-elect Roberts. Please have this email added to the community feedback at the December 9th City Council meeting regarding proposed property tax increases. Unfortunately, I will be traveling and unable to attend in person. I'm sure we are all aware that local wages have risen around 3% on average, and the consumer price index rose by over 2.4% over the last year. Families and companies are tightening their belts to avoid going into debt. I received my proposed property tax statement for 2025. The City of Forest Lake property tax portion increased by 14.1%. Why does local government not see the need to show the same kind of restraint that individuals and businesses need to exercise? I am strongly opposed to this increase given the current economic environment. The city needs to be accountable to the taxpayers of Forest Lake by staying within a 5% increase. Respectfully, Chris Voxland.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Nobody? Okay, and is there anybody online?
No, Mayor.
All right, we will, last chance? All right, we will close the public comment portion, bring consideration back to council. Council, let's open it up for any questions, comments, thoughts you may have this evening before we proceed. Not seeing any council members jump in here. I do want to just give a little bit of context around my support for the decision tonight to reduce, or the decision that's proposed by staff to reduce the proposed levy from what was in the preliminary levy down by the $250,000 to what is actually being proposed this evening. I've been kind of a big proponent throughout the year that as challenging as these numbers are, we still have a lot of gaps to fill and a lot of catch-up to be done, and specifically in the area of our parks. It is an area where we are not yet fully funded, meaning what we have for backlog in maintenance is there's a lot of open space between that backlog that needs to be done and what annual levy dollars that we are putting forward to support those needs. This is an area of a theme that we've had, unfortunately, over the last several years. We have made some great strides in catching up on streets. We've made some great strides in catching up in sewer and water and other projects and areas where we've had deferred maintenance. But parks has been that piece where we are not yet fully funded. And also, I would also acknowledge that we still have some open staff positions. Recognize that there are some staffing positions that are being proposed tonight in the budget and are being funded, but there is still a gap between the services that we say that we want to be providing to the community and the services that we are providing to the community. And this too has been an area of catch-up over multiple years. And so in that light of catch-up, I've been a proponent of, gosh, we've really got it. This is painful, but it doesn't get any easier, and we need to recover these gaps. And so I've been a proponent of, we need to stay pretty true to that initial preliminary levy number. However, when we became aware in the last couple of weeks of two different things I would say have changed. One is we became aware that 2024, we have accumulated a budget surplus. And one of the line items for this year's budget is to fund balance. As we are growing, we have a requirement to maintain that fund balance. And if we are, and turns out we are, able to fund that growth with 2024 budget surplus, to me that is a natural pivot and something that we absolutely should take advantage of. One of the other things that's in the budget this year is routine annual type charges that we have for capital equipment for police and fire for public safety. And we have received in the last couple of years funding dollars from the state that we can put towards those types of purchases. And as we've worked with the chiefs on that list and how those funds should be dedicated, it became apparent that we did have a surplus of unused funds. And again, if there's an opportunity this year, in 2025 upcoming, to apply those unused funds and not increase the levy, I think it's prudent to do so. So these two topics were discussed in a special meeting with council last Thursday. And I just wanted to give highlight to that because it has been a change from some of the meetings that we've had up to this point. But again, if we're able to identify dollars that make sense for those 2025 needs, the general consensus was in our special meeting last Thursday, and we'll certainly have an opportunity here to talk more tonight, but let's certainly take that opportunity and provide some relief. Nobody loves a double-digit increase. And if we can be smart and find some ways to make those funding needs, we're able to both accomplish what needs to happen with fund balance. We're also able to do what we need to do for police and fire equipment. And let's be smart in how those dollars are allocated. So with that, I'm happy to support the reduction that we have tonight. I'd like to thank, council members and staff for getting to this point. It has been, as Kevin's calendar presented, a full year's worth of work. And I just think it's really important that we have that level of transparency and that that we're working as hard as we can to deliver the services that are needed and the streets and all of those projects that are needed, while also keeping this number as modest as possible. Again, we recognize it's been a challenging couple of years from a city tax perspective, and we don't like it as much as anybody else. With that, I will open it up for other comments that council may have. Anything else?
Madam Mayor, nice job explaining that out. It has been a long process. We did start this in April, and myself, I'm not a fan of double-digit increases. We did take that big bite last year. We've reinvested. We've invested in infrastructure, roads. It's the number that our engineer tells us. It's $1 million per mile to do any roads, and we've not done that efficiently enough, or else we've kicked the can down the road, and so we are playing catch up there. Also in parks, I think this council, both last year and this up years, spent more in parks than we ever have, and that's what the residents are telling us. They want to have those amenities. That's how you grow a community. That's how you get more people to live here to support the businesses and the schools. And so Those two things are major reasons why we have this increase. And then, as Kevin pointed out, there's costs that we can have no control of. Everyone else in their own budgets at home or at business realize that everything goes up. So to incorporate that increase of fixed costs on top of actually wanting to do some things to create more reasons for people to live in Forest Lake, we landed at this number. I'm much happier. I would not have supported a double-digit increase. I appreciate staff, especially the chiefs, willing to use those public safety dollars to help us get to this point. And so I will be supporting this budget for 2025.
Any other comments, additional questions?
No, I'm in support of this budget as well. Just one thing I will call out is as we look next year, how we're going to spend some of these park dollars. I think it's important that we have an up-to-date conversation, especially with the park board, so that we are investing those dollars in the right places, in the right parks at the right time. So that's the only one caveat I'll make, and that's maybe more relevant to the 10-year capital plan, but I am in support of this budget with that.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'll just add that, like everyone else, it's been a long year of budget conversations, as it typically always is. But, you know, in those conversations, it's always that balancing act of making sure we are being responsible fiscally, and then also making sure we are hearing the community members, like what Blake said. Because we have a lot of community members always coming in talking about parks and how they want more amenities for parks. And so we are trying to do that this year. We're not fully there yet. We aren't fully funded, but we'll get there eventually. Just like last year, we were able to fully fund the roads. So I think this budget is going in the right direction. I'm happy that we were able to lower it, and I just support this budget, so.
I also will support it, Mayor Van. One of the things I've been a big advocate of is making sure that the public knows where the dollars are actually going. And I think Kevin's done a pretty good job of that over time. We just got to take the time to really look at that and see exactly where those dollars are going, especially if it's a street in front of your house, or in particular, or sewer work, or whatever the case may be. And there's always unforeseen things coming up in the wintertime too, so the contingency is something that I don't know how we could get along without it, so I will support this
Very good.
budget.
With that, I would move that council approve Resolution 12-9-2401 to adopt the final budget for 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. All right, our next item this evening is consideration of the 10-year capital and financial plan, and also the 10-year financial management plan. And Kevin, anything you want to kind of highlight for us before we consider?
Yes, Mayor Bain, just a couple high notes. Last year is the first year that the city council approved their capital improvement plan. I just want to reiterate that the plans there, including your packet, does not commit council to anything in those plans. It's just a commitment that this capital improvement plan and the financial management plan that is included this year is an important part of the city's process, and the city adopts these as an official budget document and planning document for the future. So just want to point that out, that nothing in this commits the city to do anything in 2026 and beyond. It's just a plan for what the city has right now. And through the budget process this year, as you found out, many things change as we go through that process. So just wanted to point that out. Just a high-level summary of where the tax levy is projected to be at in those plans in 2026, based on the decisions made going back to 24 and also in 2025 to get the city up to funding where the funding levels it needs to be. It is looking at a 14.69% increase with the cuts and changes that have been made. But the city has seen this year, a lot of things change between how the end of 2024 shapes out and how 2025 is going to look at. But that's taking into consideration everything the city knows now and where the funding levels need to be. So with that, I just ask that if the city council has any questions for myself, or that you approve resolution 12-09-2401. 2402 for the capital improvement plan and financial management plan.
Thank you, Kevin. Council, open it up. Any questions or comments on the 10-year plan? Kevin, thanks for that context. I've been a big proponent of us having this 10-year plan in place. I remember making these votes on budgets in years where we hadn't gotten there yet and we didn't have a 10-year plan. And I don't know how we made some of those decisions, just not knowing what the impact would be in future years. And so I am very glad we have this as a tool. I would also, though, caution and just say that there are things that we talk about within the city that we would like to do that still aren't in the 10-year plan. And so part of this benefit of catching up on some of this deferred maintenance is we can have a plan for it and we can know what the impact is going to be on those future years. There was a time when, for example, we didn't know when we were going to get to North Shore Trail, and we didn't know how exactly North Shore Trail was going to be funded. And thankfully, those days are behind us. But there are times when, as we're considering that North Shore Trail project, and somebody will say, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could actually put a bike path along North Shore Trail or a pedestrian path along North Shore Trail? Some of those things that we talk about that we'd like to have in the community, they're still not in the plan. And so again, this kind of goes back to this annual levy number, and as painful as it is, it points to why that number needs to be as high as it is there are things that, again, we want to have within our community that still aren't reflected in that plan. Downtown redevelopment is one of those areas. We've got a lot of future opportunity and expansion in our southwest quadrant. Those are things that will come up over the next couple of years that we still don't have fully baked into that 10-year plan. I don't mean to be too alarmist, but it is, what's in the 10-year plan is a start, but it's not a full exhaustive list of all of the things that are going to come before us. And also, as we are thinking about that, and as we're thinking about how do we do those things with some partners, whether that would be state or county partners, we need to have the foresight to get those plans in place. And so again, getting into this 10-year planning cycle is something we have started, and we thankfully have a draft mapped out. But as Kevin said, look at those numbers as a draft, and how those project dollars are specifically spent are just things that future councils are going to dig into. And again, it's partly why this, having this foresight and taking this vote tonight on just a plan is a commitment of, yes, we are still considering and building into current year decisions what is going to be happening 10 years from now. So, other comments on the 10-year plan, thoughts? All right, we're ready for a motion if anyone's ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 1209-2402, approving the 10-year capital financial plan and 10-year financial management plan.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. All right, that is the end of our planned agenda for our Truth and Taxation meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And we are adjourned. We're going to give us just a couple of minutes break, and then we'll start here with our city council meeting right at 7 o'clock. And we're adjourned.